everyone, this is Sasha bringing you a video tutorial today from BP4U. Today we're going to be talking about workspaces. So you might notice that my Photoshop interface looks different than yours, and that is just fine. There's nothing wrong with your Photoshop. I have just customized my workspace for my specific photography needs. I'm going to teach you how you can do the same thing too. And it's very easy, so don't worry that it's going to be difficult or hard. So the first thing that we're going to note is that there are some preset interfaces that you might find that you love just the way they are. So we're going to go up here to this, everything to the right of these double lines here and to the left of this single line here. This is like my little interface box, I guess. So here I'm on the essentials. I can click on this one. Now this is for design. I don't use this one because I am not a designer. I don't do a lot of designing at all, but maybe if I was going to make a logo or watermark, this might be the workspace that I would think would be the best for me. Then we have the painting interface, sort of similar to the design here. Again, this isn't for me. This would also be another great one that you could use for the like logo watermark making or something similar to that. The next one we have down here, and I can double click or I can single click on these double arrows and it brings up this little menu here. The next one I have is the photography workspace, and I have my histogram and my adjustment and my layers window. I want to talk about this histogram just a little bit too, even though we're talking about workspaces just because it's right here. A histogram shows you how well exposed your photo is. So I can see here that this photo is pretty well exposed. There's nothing climbing up the wall over here. Now if there was something climbing up this wall, that would mean that I clipped my whites or I blew highlights. If there was something climbing up the wall on this side, then that would mean that I had clipped my blacks or my photo was too underexposed. So if we go ahead here and I brighten my photo a lot, you can see that everything pushed its way over here. Now this is telling me, this histogram is telling me, wow, your photo is really overexposed. Let's go ahead and move it this way. And you can see now that my histogram has shifted to the left, and it's telling me now that my photo is underexposed. And so it's ideally that you want to keep it in the middle. If you were to look at a histogram and there was just a small piece that was climbing up the wall, but most of it was right here in the middle, you might want to check that you have a sky or something in the background. Sometimes if you blow the sky and you don't keep the clouds and the sun in exposure, sometimes it's hard to like double expose to keep everything perfectly in balance. Our eyes are really amazing because we can see, we can make our eyes expose everything differently. If you walk into a really dark room that has some light in it, normally with a camera you would see just the light and everything else would be almost gone. But with your eyeballs you can see both. Or if you're outside, you can see the clouds in the sky as well as the grass, and nothing gets blown or clipped. That's not how our eyes work, but that's not how a camera works. A camera can only expose one thing at a time. And so that's something else to keep in mind. If your exposure is pretty much in the middle, but there is something still climbing up this wall, it might just be something as simple as there's a lamp on, or you have a sky in the background, or the sun flare where you can see the sun coming in. So it's important to take a look at your histogram. You can usually find one in your camera as well. Some people like to do what they call exposed to the right, and they will set their exposure based on their histogram. And so what they'll do is they'll take a picture and then they'll look at their histogram and they'll see how far that the histogram is to the right, and they'll push it. and they'll push it as much as they can until they blow something. And then they'll know that they need to go just a little bit back. And if I was going to set the exposure of this photo here, I would probably leave my brightness right there so that my histogram looks good right here. And you can see that the picture looks a little bit better now. So in the middle, and this is just for my personal taste, there's nothing wrong with this exposure here at all. I like my pictures a little bit brighter, and I like to push my histogram as far to the right as I can. So that's just a little bit of a snippet, a little off topic, but I thought that was important to address as well. So moving along here, the next workspace that we have is for working in 3D. Again, that's not something that we are going to have to worry about in photography, because most of the time our photography is not going to be in 3D. Again, here's one for InMotion. I've never played with this workspace because I don't have any InMotion photos. You can look here at I'm working in Photoshop CS5, so I can look here in this workspace and see what is new to CS5 that wasn't in previous versions. You can reset it, which I'm not going to do, new workspace, or delete workspace. So let's go ahead and go back to the essentials, and I'm just going to close all of this stuff here. So let's go ahead and design our own. So I have nothing up here right now, and normally you might be like, oh, what are you doing? How are you going to get that back? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go up here to Window, and I can manually bring anything back in here that I want. So whatever I use the most of, I can bring in. So let's go ahead and say, okay, I want my histogram. I liked that tool. I thought that was neat. So let's go ahead and we can move our histogram to wherever we want it to be. I use a lot of actions, so let's go ahead and throw those actions in there too. And if you want to, you can combine windows. So now we have our actions and our histogram in the same window, as well as our history, our navigator, and our information. So that would save us just a little bit of room, and I'll keep that nestled right here. The next thing that we want to put up here, or at least I want to put up here, is my adjustments. I use the adjustments to edit my photos with, so that's pretty important to me. The next thing that I'm going to use is my layers. And mine shows up down here because that's where I had it before. Now you can see that there's a blue line that comes up there. If I click on that, it's automatically going to pull that and make this all now one window. It's going to kind of combine that in there and make that just one little workspace, so that I wouldn't have to worry about one overlapping the other or anything like that. Let's see here. We already have our histogram is over here. Our history is also already over here, and our info. So that's all in this window over here. It doesn't have a check mark next to it right now because it's not, for example, if I were to click on the histogram and go up here to Windows, then I would see that my histogram is checked but my actions aren't, even though they're all still out here. I'm not going to use the paragraph or any of the text tools because I do not use text very often when editing my photos. Now you have this tool presets here, and so if you wanted to, you could go through and you could set a tool preset. Like we can set a brush here, make it 500 pixels with a hardness of 50%, and you could click on new tool preset and it would say here brush tool hard round 501. So now I can quickly go through here and select the brush preset that I wanted, and I can move this box here wherever I need it to. Right now it's connected to this tool, and so maybe I could connect that tool to that box, and that would be something that would automatically collapse here. So I could collapse this or this. And my Photoshop is freezing, so give it just a second. I'm doing too much at once. There we go. Okay, so my mini bridge came up because it was embedded in those tools. I accidentally clicked on this button here, which is mini bridge. Which brings me to, I can drag this out and I can drag it down here and reset the size of that. And I could keep my bridge open all the time, maybe reset the size of this, and I can navigate through all of my raw files down here if I wanted to make it easier for me to grab a picture and put it into Photoshop. So the mini bridge is another option of something that you could have in your workspace. I'm actually going to go ahead, oops, not the whole thing. I want back my adjustments. I'm going to pull and pull that off and close that. I'm going to pull this off and close that, and pull that off and close that because I don't want that on here. Okay, so when you're really happy with your workspace, I'm going to go ahead and expand this again. When you're happy with your workspace, you can come up here and click on New Workspace, and you can give it a name. You can decide whether you are workspacing your keyboard shortcuts or your menus. I can go ahead and save it. And so now this is over here, and it's right up here with all of my other embedded workspaces, so I can get to it super quick next time that I need to change my workspace, or if something happens to my Photoshop, like somebody clicks on another workspace for me, like cute little kids that we love so much, I can quickly move back to the workspace that I want and I prefer for my editing, and I don't have to worry about having to redesign it all over again. Or if you were doing several different projects and you needed several different workspaces, you could quickly toggle between however many that you need. Like if I had 3 different workspaces for, maybe photography, I had one for design because I make my own watermarks, or whatever it is that you do, you can quickly toggle between all of your workspaces for your specific needs. So thank you so much for watching this video tutorial. Happy editing!